walk through how long has it actually taken to get from desire to being in CVS? What does it look like?
Oh man, yeah. CVS is like kind of like the example, right? And this is what I didn't know going into trying to break into retail. And I will say, I think retail is much more about who you know. Yes, you need to have a product that sells. You need to be able to get the sell through. Like that's without a doubt. But if your product does sell, like you also need to like have the right connections. And so those are some of the things that we've kind of uncovered over the last couple of years. But CVS, the journey with them, we basically sent 10 displays to 10 different CVS stores up in the Rhode Island area. And this was in probably 2000, end of 2019. Okay. Then the product sells. We're working with like the innovations team. The product sells through in the time frame that they needed it to sell through. I think it was like in like a 6 week period. Then they say, okay, like we want to test this on clip strips. It's a one-time buy. We're gonna do that for 5,000 stores. I was like, wow, fantastic, right? That's a big order.
Yeah.
That was I think we shipped that the like Q1 or Q2 of 2020. And then we sold through that. And then we got connected with the cold cough allergy buyer. So this was the buyer where they're like, hey, we think this is going to fit best on the shelf next to the other nasal products. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'd love to be in other areas of the store ultimately, but if this is where we need to start, done, right? So then we think we're going to be, kind of going in into all the stores, but no. Then they said, okay, we're going to put you in 2,000 stores on the shelf, and we shipped that in like middle of 2021. So now I have meetings with those buyers at the beginning of next month, so 2022, with the hopes that we're going to get like a nationwide launch during the reset, which is going to happen in June or July or whatever. So yeah, it's been like 3 years,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, you're trying to work all these other deals and like get in other stores. And we've been successful in doing that to some extent, but you also got to realize like the other bigger players, they're going to look at what's working. They want data, right? Like Kroger was like,
Yeah.
no, we're passing. You have no data. So now we actually have some data. I'm kind of anxiously awaiting to see like, is that data good enough for them to go bigger? And I think the answer is yes. I'm confident it will be, but it's been an absolute beast of a process. And but again, like I said, I've been learning a lot, and that's really all you can ask for at this point. So
Well, it sounds like the perfect job for the marinator. We used to, we used to call Johnny the marinator because his follow up was so good. You'd have people that would be dragging their heels, and then the follow up would happen. And like a year later, someone would come through. But it does sound like follow up is so important in this ongoing kind of grind to get into these large accounts that could literally change your business overnight.
yes, yeah, and the other thing that I didn't really you don't really think about too much, but these big retailers, like, they don't necessarily want to be working with single companies selling one or two SKUs. Like, it's the same amount of work for them to do that versus working with some of these, maybe private equity company that has a platform of like 12 products in the space, and CVS brings in 8 of them, right? Like, they don't necessarily want to be spending the time with kind of some of these smaller companies, but they also realize that that's where the innovation is. That's where they're going to find the new next hot thing. So they are willing to do it, but it's just it becomes a little more of a process because they don't want to like put their neck out on the line either and go big with something and then show their category being stagnant or even going backwards, which these buyers have like a fun job in some ways, right? Like, they don't want to like bring in a bad item that doesn't sell. That's that
Yeah.
grounds for firing.
Yeah. It's interesting thinking about the psychology, like the psychology there that they are operating under is so different than the startup founder, right? Where it's like, okay, we want to get this thing, give it a try, see if it works, and then iterate off of that. They don't really want that. They want something that's like proven, already figured out,
Yep.
and it's just something they can just plug in and not think about.
Yep.
Risks don't really help them too much.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've been like laser focused on CVS, and we know that if we can make this work at CVS and the data looks good, we're going to be able to go to every other retailer and show them what we've done, and I think like, like Nielsen, the data company, like pegged us as like the fifth fastest growing upper respiratory company, like in that, in that category in 2020, which I'm like, cool. Like you need to get those retail scans. You need that data for like anybody to take you seriously, which, at least in the retail space, direct to consumer is completely different. So it's been a mindset shift for sure.